Greetings fellow humans and welcome to a new episode of me reading makeup brands, basically. I really enjoyed doing my trying various foundations and reviewing them, comparing them, so I decided I would try another thing. What happened? What happened was that a beautiful opportunity presented itself. I was gifted this, which is the Huda Beauty Smoky Obsessions mini palette. And I thought, what an interesting opportunity to compare different smoky eye palettes and see which was the cheapest, which was the most expensive, how the quality stacked up, and all that good stuff. So, here we are. I have tried 5 different palettes. Yes, 5 different palettes. And I'm here to offer you my thoughts. So as it is the one that started all of this nonsense, I thought we would start with the Huda Beauty Smoky Obsessions palette. This palette retails at £25. As I said, I was gifted this by a friend, so that's how I got my hands on this. But £25. I looked up a little bit about it before it arrived, and I was really surprised. For a £25 retail price, I expected this to be significantly larger. I'm aware it's a mini palette, but it still took me by surprise. In comparison, the other £9 palettes I bought recently are the Colourpop £9 palettes, and so I expected this to be similar in dimension and packaging quality to this. They are not at all. This is a baby in comparison. To be fair, the amount of actual makeup that you get isn't hugely dissimilar, but one of the things that I dislike, this is like a cardboard palette with magnetic closure. In its original packaging, this would just not stand up to the rigours of the conditions of my bag if I was taking this out and about and doing makeup. Whereas this is a plastic container with like a clip shut mechanism, and this will stand up to the inside of my bag. So my general thoughts on this, £25 for a mini palette. It's okay. Some of the lighter colours weren't super pigmented, and I would expect a luxury brand, they definitely charge luxury brand prices, I would expect higher pigmentation from their lighter colours for that. There was a lot of fallout. Now for anyone who doesn't know, fallout is basically when eyeshadows are like a little bit crumbly and you end up, after applying them, having like tiny specks of that eyeshadow on your under eye area, which is annoying because then if you wipe it off, you get like streaks of that colour across your face. This had quite a bit of fallout, which surprised me. I would not expect that for a £25 mini palette I would be dealing with large amounts of fallout. The colours are very pretty, but there are 2 matte browns in this palette that are almost exactly the same colour. They're very slightly different tonally, but for like a curated smoky eye palette I would expect there to be a medium brown and a dark brown as opposed to just 2 different dark browns. And the shimmer powders didn't apply very well. They had a lot of fallout and they also took quite a lot of work to show up, which again, I was surprised by. Like 25 quid. On the flip side from the pale colours, the dark colours, particularly the matte black, were really pigmented, which in some ways was really good, but it did mean that I actually found it a little bit difficult to blend the matte black out, which if you're doing like a slow gradation between different colours on a smoky eye is fine, but if I was in a rush and wanted to do like a lazy smoky eye using 2 or 3 colours, that would kind of pose a problem. Basically, I think this palette is kind of overhyped and overpriced. Funnily enough, a little while ago I actually accidentally bought a fake of this product. And with the fake, the colours weren't exactly the same. There were a few issues with fallout. Overall, the actual formula and consistency of the fake seemed to be better than the actual product. And the 2 browns in the fake palette actually had a bigger difference in their shade. So while I do not encourage people in any way, shape or form to buy fake palettes, for a whole host of like ethical and health reasons, the fact that the actual version of this palette was beaten by a cheap fake on at least 2 points is concerning, especially at a £25 price point. So not into this. The next one that I tried was Barry M's Smokin' Hot Blush and Shadow Palette. This retails at £7.99. Basically, it has a range of shadows in different colours, a gradation as many smoky palettes do, and then a blush that goes with it. My overall thoughts on this palette? Meh. It isn't the worst ever. It is predominantly greys, blacks and whites with 1 like pale shimmer pink. The colours are pretty boring, and they also look really different in the pan than they actually are when they're on. And they're really inconsistent in how they show up on the skin. For example, the light grey in use is almost non-existent. The mid grey is actually dark grey. The white only adds like the tiniest bit of sheen. The black shimmer is actually really bitty, so when you apply it you end up leaving like streaks of black, like it literally leaves lines. And the black matte is not very pigmented, so on the skin it shows up pretty much the same colour as the mid grey. Very inconsistent in terms of how they show up on the skin. And also, this palette had a really large amount of fallout. It had the most fallout of any of the palettes that I tried. It was just quite difficult to blend and quite difficult to work with. I was really hoping that like the blush would save it, but the blush is one, not a particularly nice colour on me, and two, also not very highly pigmented, so I had to work pretty hard to actually get it to show up on my skin. Overall, not impressed, don't think it's worth $7.99, would not bother with it, end of story. Next, Bourjois. So next up we have Bourjois, this. I think it must be Bourjois. Surely. Bourjois Paris Smoky Stories. Like most palettes, I found a range of prices for it. On average, it looks like it retails for about £6.50. My overall thoughts? I hate palettes that are structured like this, first off. It really annoys me because there isn't much separation between the different colours or any particularly raised areas. It's really easy when you're specifically going in for the lighter colours to accidentally pick up darker colours at the same time, which messes up your whole base. Generally, I'm not a fan. However, from a formula perspective, these are really good quality shimmer powders. And they are all shimmer powders, by the way. There was no fallout, which made me happy. They're very pretty colours, but they're not very highly pigmented, so they took a while to show up on my skin, and I have very pale skin. For anyone who has darker skin than me, which is almost everybody, this would not be great. So particularly for any other white people who have significantly darker toned skin than me, or particularly for any people of colour with darker skin than me, which again is most people of colour, then this would really not be appropriate. Because of the mix of like the kind of peachy pink and like cool lilac colour, this would probably work for people with cool toned skin or warm toned skin or neutral skin. So from that perspective, I think that's really awesome. It's nice, but it's very subtle. So based on what most people think of as a smoky eye, I wouldn't call this a smoky eye palette. Although I do like it, and it will probably go in my, you know, travel makeup bag. Next, we have Matte Smoke by Technic. If you don't know, Technic is like the cheapest of the cheap makeup. As a range, this costs between £1.50 and £2.25. It is incredibly cheap makeup. I just wanted to see how it held up. Open your... Basically, it's a palette made up entirely of matte grey eyeshadows. It's kind of interesting. It isn't the kind of palette I would normally buy, and to be honest, I don't wear matte powders on their own. I almost always use a mix of matte and shimmer powders, or entirely shimmer powders. My overall thoughts on this, it's not that bad. For £2, I expected it to be absolute trash, and to be honest, it blended pretty well. The colours aren't exciting, but they're grey, so they're never going to be. And like, there is a little bit of fallout with the darker colours, but the fallout from this was nowhere near as bad as the fallout from this. So £25, £2, I'm more than happy with a little bit of fallout for £2. Very unhappy with fallout for more than 12 times that amount. Again, I know it's stupid to sit there and go, this isn't 12 times better than this, but to be honest, I think people should think about things in that context more often. Like, this is not the greatest makeup, but for £2 I don't expect it to be. I don't expect this to be the greatest makeup of all time for £25 either, but I do expect it to be of a good enough quality to not leave fallout all over my face. And on that front, this one failed, and this one was actually better. Yeah, I don't think this is particularly exciting. I wouldn't use it on a regular basis, and if I hadn't been making this video, I wouldn't have sought this out at all. However, if I was desperate for mattes, and particularly matte grey, these are actually really useful and will probably become part of my makeup kit more in like a filling the gaps in other palettes when I'm trying to create specific looks kind of thing. Technic has beat out Huda Beauty, but there you go. Kids. Last on the agenda. Now the next palette isn't technically a smoky palette, seeing as I had 3 palettes that were below the £10 mark and 1 palette that was £25. I wanted to see if I could find something that was kind of in between as a mid-range to compare that to the others. I actually struggled to find a specific smoky palette between 12 and 20 quid, which is interesting from a who these are marketed to perspective. So instead, I looked around for palettes between those price points that I thought looked interesting and were clearly curated towards a kind of more smoky look. I picked up a palette from a company called Juvia's Place. I got the Nomad palette. It retails for like £19.50. Similarly to how I expected the Huda Beauty palette to be a similar size to my Colourpop £9 palette, the Nomad palette is also a £9 palette. so I expected it to be similar. So for me, for something like this, £19.50 is a little bit on the pricey side. However, across YouTube and the internet in general, people rave about this brand and how good they are. And on top of that, I think all of their stuff is cruelty-free. It's a black-owned business and they keep all of their production domestic to where they're based in the US. Overall, it seems like a pretty ethical company, and so I personally am happy to pay like a little bit more than I would normally be happy to, specifically to support companies that have that kind of ethos. When it arrived though, I got this. The size of the palette does not dictate the size of the pans. This I know. However, this is a really good sized palette. A really good sized palette. I have nearly twice the amount of makeup in the Juvia's Place pans than I do in the Colourpop one. For this amount of makeup, I am very happy spending £19.50 on a 9-pan palette of this size. I was really impressed. This is how you do it, Huda Beauty. For twice the amount of makeup is, you know, £5.50 cheaper than this. Also, the packaging of this and the artwork is super cool. Again, it is just a cardboard palette. However, this is clearly not designed to be put in your bag and taken with you. So I don't expect that this would hold up to the rigors of my bag, because I wouldn't put this in my bag as it is. It's just too big to take with me. This is like a sit down and do your makeup at home kind of deal. The shades are also gorgeous. This is what I'm currently wearing, and I used the lightest yellow, I used the kind of khaki green, the darkest green, and the brown. Oh, and a tiny bit of the like gold shimmer in the corners of my eye. It blends pretty well. The darkest brown I had a little bit of trouble getting to like zhuzh properly, but that may just have been my janky application, to be fair. I was genuinely really impressed. I don't really know what to say about this beyond it's really good, and I now see why there are so many people who absolutely rave about this company. They're beautiful colours. They clearly have a good formulation because there was like no fallout whatsoever. There's enough of a range of colours in here that I feel like I could actually create quite a lot of different looks with it, not just because of the different colours that are there, but also like the way they work together tonally. Basically, I'm just all up in this. These are highly pigmented, which is unsurprising because my understanding is that the founder of this company specifically was unhappy with the lack of highly pigmented colours that were appropriate for darker skinned women to use, and so set out to fix that. So they are really highly pigmented and they're a really good formulation. I didn't have to use very much of them to get them to look good and look true to colour. There's another point that's worth making. I think that they're really true to the colour that they are in the pan when applied as well, which is not always the case by any means, as literally all of the other palettes in this have shown me. I kind of got this on a whim, and I am so glad I did, because I've never bought anything from this brand before, and let me tell you, that is going to change. I'm going to buy many things from this brand when I can afford to. I like what I know of the ethos of the company. Their packaging's gorgeous, their colours are beautiful, they're really highly pigmented, they don't get fallout all over my face, and they make me look pretty. So overall, I'm really impressed with this. Yeah. Take notes, other brands in this video. I would expect for this size of palette and for the calibre of the makeup, I would happily spend £25 on this as opposed to £25 on this. My overall issue with stuff like this is these are luxury makeup prices, in my opinion. This palette, I would probably be happy to spend 10-12 quid on this. And I'm sure, if I looked, I would be able to find something of a similar size and similar quality at around that price point. Or I would be able to find something that cost around £25 from another luxury brand that would actually be the kind of formulation and quality that I would expect to pay for that price. This is a very reasonable amount of makeup in beautiful colours with really good formulation for just under £20. This is the kind of quality that I would expect for these kinds of prices. This has surpassed the quality and size that I expected to get for the amount that I paid for it. That's kind of perfect. So I'm aware that I've basically just spent like however many minutes crawling up inside Juvia's Place and bigging them up, but genuinely, this is probably one of my favourite makeup palettes that I have bought ever, and I'm going to use it so much. I'm really excited to play with it and figure out what other kinds of looks I can do beyond this. So overall, a roundup of the thing. This is my favourite, surprising nobody. And to be honest, my second place would probably be the Bourjois. It's not the most exciting, it's not the most dramatic, but it is a pretty functional palette and quite good quality formulation. The middle spot, depressingly for the other two, I'm sure, is the Technic matte shadows. I wouldn't use this on its own like I would with the other two, but I'd probably be pretty happy to like sub this in when I needed a neutral colour to blend with in other looks. In terms of ranking these two up, There are things that I hate about both of them, honestly. The Barry M one I liked less than the Huda Beauty one. Had I purchased this at full price, I would have been really salty about it. Yeah, these two are equally bad, in my opinion. They tie for last place. But if I'm gonna buy a mediocre makeup palette, I would rather spend £7.99 on a mediocre makeup palette I'm never gonna use again than 25 quid. Unimpressed. On many levels. Yay! It's that time again where I do the spiel. Yeah. If you like this video, then like it. If you like what I do and would like to see more of it, then subscribe to my channel. Hit the little bell thing because then you get notifications and you get to watch my stuff more often. If you know somebody that you think would enjoy this, feel free to send it their way. I really appreciate when people share my videos. It gives me the warm fuzzies knowing that I made something that other people like. It's very cool. I really enjoy doing this. I really enjoy making these videos and I really enjoy hearing reactions from you guys in the comments, so keep that up because that's really awesome. Thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate you spending the time with me. Big love, and I will see you guys next time. It's cold. Spent too long bitching about Huda Beauty, and it's cold.